I'm still tired from Saturday, JB. I got to be honest with you. 4 hours on the air. I had to take a trip down to New York City right after that, ref a couple of games. But the 4 hours, while tiring, can always be very rewarding when we do the D3 BlitzER. Third year we did it on Saturday. And what were some of your takeaways from that show before we get to some highlights from it?
Well, for the first time, the equipment worked really well. We didn't have any like major crash and burns with a blank screen, so that was fun. And actually, we got to see some games that were really way more entertaining. We thought we had these mixed, these lopsided matchups, but like Wesley Kane ended up being probably one of the best games of the weekend. Cortland Hartwick, which we thought was going to be, a runaway by the Red Dragons, came down to the fourth quarter and was a little bit in doubt until that field goal block. So we got to see some pretty good football games, maybe more competitive ones than we thought initially when you just looked at who was playing who.
Well, while things did go well on our end generally, except for maybe 10 minutes of me in my chair because we had the wrong camera up, but thanks to Greg Thomas for catching that one for us. It happens. We also do want to point out some of the better moments of the show. Maybe not technical glitches on our end, but maybe some brain freezes by us or brain freezes by camera crews from around the country. Let's look at the best of D3 BlitzER 2019. And we'll start this look. Let's start with some of the technical difficulties we can't control, like Western New England. Boy, it was 7-0 for a long time in that game until we realized it froze. The transmission froze, and next thing we knew it was 21-0, and then that froze. So good luck finding highlights from that one. Huston had the same problem, though. In fact, you try to find the archive of a great game finished versus Salve Regina. It's not there. The second half is missing. And we may not even have clips in crunch time later on. But this happens. It happens. And we had 16-plus games we were tracked. It happens. When you're doing the show, you do rely on those high-quality broadcasts that the folks at these schools do present us. However, we do have one minor complaint with Hartwick. You'll see right here.
Yeah, that's a tough spot. And wait a minute, he's gone.
Turn
like
the camera. Turn the camera.
Turn the camera.
Did he get there?
There we go. Can't tell. It doesn't look like he scored because
nobody's excited.
And I thought Hobart broadcast.
Not even close. This is about the worst I've ever
seen.
Just for those that don't know, the ball got to the 28-yard line, then 14 yards of penalty for sideline interference, we found out from the stats later on, and then there was a Cole Burgess touchdown immediately following that. So don't worry, we're right on top of that. We've got all the info you need well after the fact. Hey, speaking of camera issues and whatnot, MIT. Great broadcast. Scoreboard looks good. Yeah. Well, hold on. Before him, let's just look at this fact that I can't see what's going on in this field of play. I think I can see like 8-bit characters running up and down the field, but you can't be serious that you can't zoom the camera. Okay, let's do that. But one moment when you needed to zoom out was what JB was just sort of suggesting. What is this man with the Harvard hat doing at halftime in this camera shot? He obviously knows he's on camera because he's playing up to it, but my goodness. Hello, sir. How are you? We did catch him during that. As the games go on, though, JB, your analysis of everything, it gets better and better. In fact, here's my favorite analysis of yours during Saturday.
We'll see what happens with the playoffs, Frank. But Jeff Behrman's making a strong case for a potential kind of Coach of the Year award, in my opinion. He's really done a heck of a job for Union.
You think? I mean, seriously, it's almost a no-brainer at this point. Yep.
Quality.
Yeah, JB with Jeff
what the
Behrman.
fans come here for, man.
Yeah, Jeff Behrman, maybe Coach of the Year, folks. There's a huge secret on that one that nobody could have considered. I'll tell you. And then finally, as games come to a conclusion, you just never know what you're going to get. You might get a blue screen, or you might get what happens at Wesley, like right there. And that's the best of our D3 BlitzER 2019 moments. And for those wondering, we do have clearance from the NCAA to do a 2019 Bracket Blitz show at D3Football.com. So you'll want to tune in for that. That said,
your clearance, Clarence.
Amen. We've got a lot of games to cover, 36 of them, in fact. So let's begin in the Huddle's host chat for Week 10. Week 10. Just one more week left here, and then the playoffs at that point. As we say down here, 7 bids down, 1 to go, maybe more. We'll see. We'll talk about that in the show. We did the the BlitzER, I should say. Bracket Blitz is in 2 weeks. But what were your takeaways from the action? You kind of broke down some of the surprising games and whatnot, but the overall action that we saw in the games that we covered and some of the games we didn't cover on Saturday.
Well, with the exception of that 1 to go, the conference champions or the championships kind of played out like we thought. Brockport won, although in a more of a defensive battle than we thought. Western New England won, kind of running away. Framingham State took care of Bridgewater a little easier than we may have thought. So, yeah, I mean, there was things kind of worked out like we expected, but the results and how things panned out didn't necessarily follow our predictions. But, we know at this point who all the conference champions are except for one. Hats off to Middlebury Panthers, who officially finished the NESCAC season 9-0 for the first time in their program's history. So congrats to Coach Ritter on that. Would love to see the Panthers in the NCAA playoffs, but they took their ball and went home. Maybe someday, Frank, but not anytime real soon. But they Will Jernigan and company, heck of a season for them. And so now it's kind of come down to the last question is it MIT, Springfield, or WPI?
We'll go through which can win how in this show. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go through a crunch time segment and essentially go through the scores and the schedule and standings all together again. JB will give us about 30 seconds, he promised me today, because we're going to try to keep this very tight for the simple reason we have way too many games to cover this go around, 36 of them. We lose a bunch of those games next week for reasons we'll talk about during crunch time. And then after crunch time and JB's stat chat, which we have a brand new jingle for coming up in just a little bit, we have production value like no other show out there, folks. Yeah. or like none at all. But then we will have our prior live show with the regional rankings so that they're released Wednesdays, as you know, and earlier in the day on Wednesday, we did our live show once they were released to talk about what they all mean, and we'll tack it on at the end of this show as well. You'll want to stay tuned Thursday for great interviews with Grant Tragney of RPI, senior captain there, and Bill George, who announced his retirement from Coast Guard Academy on Tuesday. He's facing off against Merchant Marine Academy for the Secretary's Cup on this Saturday. Enjoyed talking with him immensely. That's on Thursday. Friday, live predictions, because Lord knows I can't catch you, I don't think, at this point, the way things have panned out, but we'll see what I can do. I did get a Montclair game right for once. Then
Montclair, right?
Sunday, we have confirmed Jim Catanzaro, the NCAA Selection Committee Chairman, will be joining us. We will have that show up immediately following the selection show. We will have a little bit of a preview of the bracket to discuss with him. And as such, we will ask him relevant questions to teams that we saw missing or in there, and the seedings and bracketing and how it all plays out. Ultimately, it could be a lot of different questions to be asked this year. We'll see how it goes. Monday, we have ECAC selection show where we will bring it to you first. The ECAC Bowl selections here on In the Huddle for the second straight year. And then we'll have a host chat show eventually next week. And we're also going to probably do a little feature on Framingham State next week as well. You want to tune in for that one because we may have a special guest or two hopping for that. So the next week, get used to our faces because I'm sorry to tell you, you're stuck with us pretty much. And there's going to be a lot of us. So JB,
grand finale.
Let's hurry up this segment, I guess, at this point with lots of clips still. You are watching Crunch Time for Week 10. In the CCC, we will begin, and it is Western New England having a big win against Becker, 35-0. Stephen Fedorchuk's score here from Alec Coleman was a 35-0 score maker. That's what the final ultimately was with 11:31 left in the third quarter. This 3-yard touchdown made it 35-0. They outgained Becker 363-78. And I'll tell you, the Western New England Golden Bears are riding high right now, essentially undefeated in Division III play still. Let's also look at the Nichols 56, Curry 42 game. After 2 quarters of play, 27-14. This was the touchdown that made it that, 29 yards. Hunter Ferreira from Michael Pena. They really needed a 2-possession lead, and this 27-14 lead made it such because Curry kept trying to come back in this game, just could never get there. The teams combined for almost 1,000 yards. In overtime, Husson with a giant comeback against Salve Regina, 29-26. Salve Regina led 23-8 with 1:40 left in the third quarter. David Morrison, quarterback for Husson, had 320 passing yards and 4 touchdowns, including the overtime game winner, the 6-yard pass to Aiden Hogan. And Endicott, 49, University of New England 7, as the Endicott offense outgained UNE 551-245. What's left, you ask? Essentially, Husson at Western New England seems to be the highlight game to see if Western New England can move to 9-0 against Division III teams or not, and perhaps get a home playoff game. It'll be razor thin in that position. We don't know at this point how it will look in the end. Otherwise, Endicott at Nichols could be an interesting game as well. The CCC, sir.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all going to boil down to whether or not we see Western New England get that home game in the playoffs. A win certainly helps their cause, but with the way the seedings are starting to shape up, it may not matter. I think Endicott's probably going to be the CCC rep in the New England Bowl. My dog agrees. And so there you have it.
When a dog barks, you know you're right and needs to stop. Here's a game that basically was decided in a back-and-forth affair. Alfred State 21, SUNY Maritime 17. They were down 17-7, though, was Alfred State. Then in the fourth quarter, Riley Van Vliet, with a 75-yard punt return, made it 17-14 with 10:39 left in the fourth quarter. And then there's Jake Palmer, 1-yard touchdown run with about 1:20 left, made it 21-17 Alfred State. Gallaudet went down against Anna Maria, 53-14. Then Nathaniel Slaughter with a 44-yard scoop and score, 53-14 was the score there, and that was the final. And Castleton beats up on Dean 38-20 as Devin Woolner had a 21-yard run in the fourth quarter with about 3:19 left to make it that final score, 38-20. Castleton led 31-6 at half, but The comeback was short by Dean. Looking at the ECFC standings, let's not maybe. Only one game left. It's Mount St. Joseph at SUNY Maritime. That is a non-conference game, but it determines if SUNY Maritime will be 5-5 or 4-6 going to the playoffs. Give me 15 seconds on the ECFC.
What a crazy season. I mean, just look at the win-loss column for all these teams, and Dean losing to the one team in the conference that had 0 wins. I don't know what to tell you.
Well, let's move on to the new MAC at this point. And you brought it up earlier, MIT, WPI, and Springfield. Basically, the team that controls its own destiny is MIT. Let's take a look at them, though, against Norwich. They won 34-21. Norwich played a headstrong game, though, in the third quarter, 9:59 left. Manny Romero from Matt Dunn from 62 yards out made it 14-13 Norwich. But about 4.5 minutes later, Eric Bradford from Chris Mauck, 13-yard touchdown here, made it 20-14 MIT. They never looked back, scored 21 unanswered in that second half, and Mauck had 4 touchdown passes. MIT defense with 4 interceptions in the game. Then we have, I believe we're going to the Coast Guard WPI game. Check that. Well, let's go to Springfield, Maine Maritime. And it was 56-7 final score there. There are 7 different rushing touchdown recipients by Springfield, but we're going to pick out here the Chad Shade pass to Andrew Smith from 48 yards out. That made it 21-0 at the beginning of the second quarter, but 56-7 final in that game. The defense was 6 sacks, 8 tackles for loss, 2 fumble recoveries, 3 interceptions, and you know what's coming next, the Partridge and the Pear Tree. Coast Guard could not keep up with WPI, 54-7. Gallon of field combined for 20 rushes, 225 yards, and 5 touchdowns. The WPI defense, 3 interceptions, 5 tackles for loss. And Merchant Marine 47, Catholic 10. This game was over with early as US MMA outgained Catholic 572-290. Christian Abbott with 223 passing yards. We called the triple option, but the spread option basically at Merchant Marine Academy because of those types of numbers. Looking at what's up next, MIT, Springfield. If MIT wins, it's their conference. If Springfield wins, then WPI wins the conference unless they lose against Norwich, which the way that Norwich played against MIT, anything's possible right now, I guess. But MIT controls their own destiny, all games at noon, and we'll see who comes out of this in one piece. WPI, though, remember, is the only team that can finish with only 1 loss. They would be 9-1 with a win, but 9-1 may not be enough to win and will not get them a Pool C bid as well.
Amazing. Yeah. Sort of haves and have-nots in the new MAC. You see a lot of points on one side of the scoreboard and maybe not so much on the other. But yeah, like you said, it's coming down to whether or not MIT can get a win against the Pride.
MASCAC time. Framingham State wins the MASCAC 40-20 over Bridgewater State. I think it's Anthony Behonik with the 20-yard interception return for a touchdown. Made it 27-6 about 5 minutes into the second quarter. Framingham State just wasn't looking back at that point. They were just rolling after Bridgewater State scored first in that game. 27 unanswered points total, and there was the end of that unanswered streak. Adam Wojcinski with 245 total yards and 4 passing touchdowns. Let's look at the Pirate Bowl. Or R, I should say, maybe. I'll get my pirate isms right here. It was Maritime beating Dartmouth 28-12. Looking at Matt Long, the 79-yard touchdown run for the quarterback. Yes, that's the quarterback, folks. Made it 7-0, 5 minutes into the game. And Maritime didn't look back. He had 317 total yards, 3 rushing touchdowns on the afternoon. Westfield State 38, Worcester State 15. The Lancers just can't get on the win board yet. They led 9-7 at halftime, but Westfield State had 311 rushing yards in the game. In Western Connecticut 41, Fitchburg State 7. David James 21 for 30, 228, 3 touchdowns, and the defense forced 3 turnovers for Western Connecticut. MASCAC standings, it's over, folks. Western Connecticut, Bridgewater State are at 2 losses, and we'll see how that ends up. They do not play each other here, obviously, as Bridgewater State plays Mass Maritime, and Plymouth State plays Western Connecticut. Framingham State playing winless Worcester State. They have a great strength of schedule right now. That's about to go into the tank from 591 probably down to about 540 because playing an 0-9 team just doesn't help your strength of schedule, the MASCAC.
Yeah, but the Rams will be a tough out for whoever they end up facing in the NCAA playoffs. They have been for several years running now. They'll probably be the road team, but they can hang pretty much with anybody. So I wouldn't count out Wojcinski and DeMar and company from Framingham. They'll put up a good fight.
Indeed, indeed. Let's go to the NESCAC and the biggest little game in America. Williams beats Amherst 31-9, and Amherst finishes under 500 for the first time since 1993.
Way back.
The touchdown we're looking at is the first quarter, 9:27 left, first touchdown of the day. Joel Nicholas, he had a 6-yard touchdown run for. That's actually his second touchdown. He had 3 rushing touchdowns though on the day. Did Nicholas 14-0, that made the score again 31-9 final in that game. Middlebury has to fight in this one, but beats Tufts 31-24. Alex Maljan with a 3-yard touchdown run here to make it 31-14 just at the beginning of the fourth quarter. Their first undefeated season in history. Will Jernigan with 338 total yards and 3 touchdowns total. Then let's look at Bates. Their biggest comeback in 50 years, since 1969 against Hamilton.
Wow.
In this case,
Way to go,
26-21. Let's look at a bunch of plays here. They were down 21-0, and in the fourth quarter, still down. Here's Parker Smith from Brandon Costa, 35 yards. But, I mean, they're still down. Then a punt miscue by Hamilton gives them a short field to work with. And just a minute after that prior touchdown, Sean Bryant from Brendan Costa, again, 25 yards out this time, made the final 26-21 as they held on one last chance by Hamilton. They held on against that to win the game. Also, Wesleyan 28, Trinity 20, as Trinity, their worst season since 2014, essentially, with their 5-4 finish this season after being a two-peat champion there. 476 total yards by Wesleyan and a good time possession advantage. Colby 47, Bowdoin 34. Colby rallies from down 34-20 to score 27 unanswered in this game. Again, your undisputed champions of the NESCAC, Middlebury Panthers. How'd you like that?
My dad is digging it. He's a Middlebury class of 70, technically 71, I think, is he needed a little extra semester before he got the ski down and get his diploma. But great run for the Middlebury College Panthers this season.
Let's go to New York. Wait, I'm there already. But let's talk about the games from New York. We'll start with the Liberty League here. And, when you woke up in the first quarter and saw the score of the RPI Ithaca game, you may have thought things were reversed, as Pat Coleman had suggested on the ATN podcast. Not the case. Let's start in the first quarter with this play.
Fakes the handoff. Marinopoulos throws. Finds Meisler complete to the 5. Meisler's on his feet, and he's in for the touchdown. Gets the ball across the plane.
Then, just a little bit later, an interception by Battle made it, a chance again for RPI. And with 5:04 left in the first quarter, this happened.
A little more zip on that would have been an easy touchdown.
Direct snap to Lombardi. He is in for the touchdown.
The ensuing play from that, it's a fumble on the kickoff by Ithaca. So another chance just 2 minutes later. Let's see what happens.
At quarterback. Gives to Munoz Watts. He gets hit in the backfield, but that's not enough. He's in for the touchdown. 20-0 RPI leads. Wow.
Thanks to Kurt Stutt for all the good audio on that video right there. And that 2-yard run made it 21-0. Final score 38-12 as, I'll tell you, failed to kick did Ithaca. That interception, obviously, you got to pin on the offense. Some special teams errors, a lot of different errors early on. And the defense just couldn't hold back RPI from scoring on those short fields. They led 31-0 at halftime, and then it was just, stall out the game and get it done with at that point. Rochester, all right, check that. Union, we'll go to next. They had a battle against Utica, no doubt. And the last
call, yeah.
the only touchdown I should say by them is this Joe Ferreira 3-yard touchdown run to make it 10-0 with 3:27 left in the first half. Then in the third quarter, with only about a minute left, you're going to see Ryan Van Galen throwing this one to Keegan Wright, and that makes it a 13-7 game, or check that 10-7 game at that point. Union had to add a field goal, and then a final chance here for Utica. Let's hear it from Andrew Santillo.
Van Galen gets the snap. Union, it's knocked away. Pass knocks.
As he said, pass knocked away. It makes it final 13-7 Union. And then we go to Hobart, who had a nice win against Buffalo State, 40-23, as Hoffman had 279 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. Hafner with 132 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. Good run-pass balance there by the Statesman. And St. Lawrence 51, Rochester 19, as Tyler Groshot with 32 for 39 day, almost 300 yards and 6 touchdowns by him. Joseph Vizcardo, 3 touchdowns. Back to Groshot, though, he had a 30-year-old school record for most touchdowns in a season. He broke there with those 6 touchdowns, cumulative, again, for the season at that point. And a great job by him. It's been one of those inconsistent seasons for Tyler and for the St. Lawrence Saints, no doubt. But they're trying to finish strong here. Could get to 5-5 with a win coming up this week.
Yeah, and there's definitely a lot of Liberty League teams still sort of in the hunt for the postseason. I mean, obviously Union's going to the playoffs, but both RPI and Ithaca have submitted for an ECAC bowl game. Hobart is maybe hoping that the New York State bowl game falls their way. So 4 teams still kind of waiting to see what their postseason outlook might come out to be.
Brockport played a weird game in the Empire 8 against Alfred. It looked like it was going to be a rout early, but after being up by a touchdown early, Brockport gets the ball back in this way with a punt miscue by Alfred to basically take the ball over the Alfred 2-yard line. And Jallet, we're gonna call it the Jallet cat that transpired from there. The 2-yard run as he took the direct snap with 6:51 left in the first quarter, made it 13-0. But then look at this touchdown. A.O. Othman from KC Boston, 66 yards for that touchdown, made it 13-7 with 14:10 left. But then an 11-minute, 28-second drive that took 21 plays to finish, the 21st play being this field goal. Wow. Dustin Moyle from 24 yards out made it 16-7, which was insurmountable with only about 2 minutes left in the game. Brockport wins at 16-7. Cortland had their share of troubles, as did the Hartwick cameraman. They won 32-21. We'll start here with Kevin Roberts' field goal getting blocked by Paul Imperial. The 21-yard attempt it was obviously no good on that block. And then the next play, it's Zach Tripodi from 66 yards. But this is the classic move the darn camera play, because he didn't get to the end zone. He got to the 28-yard line, and Cole Burgess eventually scored in that game. 32-21. Cortland wins, but Hartwick had a 22-21 lead Cortland had a 22-21 lead, but the field goal would have made it 24-22 if they had kicked it. Just took the wind out of their sails when it was blocked there. Zach Tripodi, 29 rushes, 205 yards, and a touchdown. And Morrisville stayed early and often in this game against St. John Fisher, 49-13. They led 42-6 at halftime. Got to give it up for Kinsey Williams with 22 rushes, 174 yards, 3 touchdowns, and Morrisville's defense with 5 interceptions, including a pick 6. Didn't see that level of a win coming there. We thought Morrisville would be good, but wow.
Morrisville both in third place in the Empire right now. I mean,
good point. And we're looking at this here. Also, Brockport and Cortland both at 8-1, but obviously Brockport 5-0 in the conference, so they win the conference. Cortland is playing a non-conference opponent in Ithaca. It's some game at MetLife Stadium. Nothing major down there. Brockport, though, is going to be facing Morrisville State, the third-place team, trying to make some noise. We'll see what happens and how Brockport treats the game, because there are questions right now at quarterback for them. Freddie June seemed to be out of that game. Hellwig was in, but they were trying all kinds of direct snap things in that game, and so we'll see how it plays out. But what are you thinking here about these Brockport Golden Eagles?
Well, what a coaching job by Mangoni and Potter and company up there in Brockport. They've really turned their season around after a tough week 1 start. Rattled off 8 wins in a row now, and another conference title. They're going into the playoffs with a lot of momentum. Their run game looks strong. Their defense looks strong. I mean, they could go a little further than folks might expect. We'll see.
Okay, we're going to have to speed up the clips here in the next discussion because in the MAC, we didn't have. This is not a basketball score. I know basketball season has begun in Division III. This is not a basketball score when we put it up here. FDU Florham beats Alvernia 84-56, 140 points combined. Almost breaks the record in Division III for combined scoring. We would like to tell you about Tommy Galante's day. And we're going to tell you by running all 9 touchdown clips. I said it, folks. 9. Here we go. 39 seconds left in the first quarter. Tommy Galante, a 14-yard run. He makes it 21-7 there. Then Connor Perez catches a 70-yard pass from Galante with 12:56 left in the first half. That's 28-7 FDU Florham. Hey, Robert Blakely got in the mix, but we won't worry about him at 42-14. At 49-14, though, DeMarcus Price from Tommy Galante, 17 yards out, made it 49-14. Hey, halftime came up. Tommy Galante said, "Hey, coach, keep me in." And did he ever? As Roy Sullivan catches a 5-yard pass from him, 56-21. Then Connor Perez back in the act for his third touchdown catch from Galante. It's 63-28 with 5:03 left in the third quarter. Hey, Tommy Galante, why don't you go for a 42-yard run on your own? Okay, there it is, 69-35, right around the end of the third quarter. 3 Alvernia touchdowns later, Connor Perez gets his 4th touchdown reception from Galante, a 28-yard pass, 77-56 with 7:11 left in the regulation period. And Tommy Galante, he decides, coach, I can catch the ball too. So Mark Kepler throws him a 56-yard touchdown pass, 84-56 with 2:40 left in the fourth quarter. That's the final. Okay, there is that. Wow. I don't think there's anything else I'm going to tell you about that game at this point. Misericordia cannot beat Albright, who breaks a 19-game losing streak. Let's look at 2 Malik Bootman touchdowns here. He had 33 rushes, 148 yards, and 2 touchdowns. The first one, 3 yards. The second one here is 8 yards out. And that, again, makes it 20-0 at that point. Final score, 20-10. Albright, congratulations to them. Stevenson doubles up Wilkes, 42-21, as Wilkes was held to 63 passing yards. Ryan Sedgwick, 22 for 27, 278, and 3 touchdowns for Stevenson. Stevenson, remember, with a Del Val loss, would split the conference, although Del Val wins all tiebreakers. Widener is who Del Val plays next, and that's a 41-21 win by them over Kings, as there was a good time of possession advantage there for Widener. They scored 21 unanswered in the second quarter. And Lycoming, 48, Lebanon Valley 3, as Lycoming outgained Lebanon Valley 515-202, and the defense forced 4 turnovers. The MAC standings, pretty much what you'd expect right now, of course. You know, Del Val, Stevenson, Wilkes, Widener. Wilkes maybe the odd sock there. The kind of memories of the recent old days, having Del Val, Stevenson, and Widener toward the top of those standings. So, again, Wilkes, the oddball right now that people didn't necessarily expect to see. And Del Val will play Widener at 1 o'clock on Saturday. And JB's got nothing to say about the MAC, so we'll go to the end chat. Hopefully I can edit that into shorter than 3 seconds of silence. That was pretty classic there.
Yeah.
In the end, Jack. I need a break, man.
What can you say after 84 points?
I just read you this entire sheet, basically. You had nothing to say to me about the MAC. How about Wesley? We tracked this game for a while because Kane had a 13-12 lead at halftime. As Tyree Taylor to Dante Jameson from 6 yards out made it 13-12 before halftime. But Marcellus Park opened up this game with an 87-yard touchdown run. Here it is.
Be able to run run 5 seconds off on any given play here. Rocco in the shotgun will hand it off to the near side. It's Pack. He's got the 15-20. Goodbye. 25-30, 35-40, 45-50. Pack to the 40, 30, 20. Goodbye, Marcellus Pack.
Thanks to Sean Green for that audio on the video. 27-13 final. Wesley wins in a game that was closer than it should have been, to be honest. They trailed for a little while in that game, don't forget. And Wesley's offense overcame 4 turnovers, gaining 442 yards. Should not have been that close. I can't say it enough times. Hey, Rowan, Christopher Newport, what an ending in this game. They were down 20-0 and 23-7 was Rowan. At halftime was 23-7. Third quarter, 10:40 left. Mike Husney with a 10-yard touchdown run gives Rowan their first lead of the game at 27-23, but 23 seconds left, fourth quarter, first and goal from the 2 for CNU, and oh my goodness, the bad snap. Anthony LaRosa lands on it, and that ends the game. Christopher Newport 2 yards away from winning the game, essentially, and they threw it away. Rowan wins it and moves to 3-6 on the season, 27-23. Also, Salisbury just rolled over TCNJ 62-20, outgaining them 517-269, and Montclair State 36, William Patterson 6, as they outgained William Patterson 445-162. Will Birch 280 in passing yards, 1 passing touchdown. The Frank Rossi jinx is over. We got one right finally. 5th time's the charm. Salisbury has won the conference, obviously. Wesley cannot catch them, but Wesley's hoping for a Pool C bid, and they'll have to beat Christopher Newport, who's 2-7 currently, and hope their strength of schedule passes muster ultimately. That's the NJAC, and that is crunch time for Week 10. Okay, folks, you've been waiting all show for this segment.
You've got something for me, don't you, Frank?
I certainly do.
Hired a musician or something? Commissioned a piece?
Maestro, please.
JB Stat Chat.
Yeah.
He's gonna chat about stats.
That's right, it's JB's Stat Chat, where he chats about some stats. I will say that Will from Nomad, Coffee and Crepes, did this yesterday while I was doing some editing work and whatnot. And one of the takes, he said that you stat about some chats, but we got it right eventually. And yeah, go figure that one out. JB, this is your segment. I'm going to sit back and relax because I've been talking way too much.
Yeah, well, got to start off with Tommy Galante from FDU Florham. I mean, 84 points, 9 touchdowns, 6 passing, 2 rushing, 1 receiving even. I mean, one of the craziest games that I can ever remember in D3 history. Like you said, it didn't break the record, but 140 total points sure came close. And then we saw a lot of lopsided games with Salisbury scoring 62, Springfield, Nichols both scored 56. WPI put up 54. Anna Maria scored 53. And St. Lawrence 51. Their quarterback, Tyler Groshot, 6 passing TDs. I wanted to give a shout out to Albright's. Malik Bootman, 33 carries, 148 yards, 2 touchdowns. Been a long time coming for the Lions. Congrats on the win. As far as defense goes, I mean, RPI, what else can you say? I mean, they took it to Ithaca, played an awesome game. As did Western New England. They shut out Becker, and for the second week in a row, Quitman, their linebacker, had almost 20 tackles again, 3 tackles for loss. Morrisville State's Justin Donnelly had a 60-yard pick six, one of 5 interceptions by the Mustangs, who were trying to hang on to a potential ECAC bowl berth. And then Framingham State, Anthony Bahonic, 6 tackles, 2 for loss, a fumble recovery, and interception. And then, as you mentioned just a few minutes ago, Frank, Tony LaRosa from Rowan made a heads-up play to give the win to the Profs. And so special teams, I mean, you got to give a shout-out to Riley Van Fleet. Like, that's like an all-name team player right there. 75-yard punt return for a touchdown, turned the tide for the Pioneers and helped them win that game against the Privateers. Hobart running back Tim Denham, 80-yard kickoff return for a touchdown in the senior night game against Buffalo State. And, one once again, Dylan Dubuque blocking field goals, doing stuff on special teams for Cortland. They've had like 10 blocked field goals this season, Frank. One of the most crazy stats I've seen in a while, and they might need one of those kind of plays at MetLife this weekend when they take on Ithaca in the big Cortica matchup. So that's all I got for Stat Chat this week, Frank, and I'm out of here.
We've got some disagreement on who exactly blocked that field goal because I'm showing Paul Imperial on one of the stat sources we have. So whoever did block that Cortland or by Cortland that Hartwick field goal, good job to you. We don't want to take away who it may have been or may not have been ultimately. JB, we are going to now go to the regional rankings show that was earlier. So let's go to that. Okay, we are live here around, what is this, 2:28 p.m. Eastern Time on Wednesday. What were they out about 90 minutes later than last week? I think the regional rankings around 1:30 they got released today. If you're watching our host chat show, this is pre-recorded, obviously. But nonetheless, if you're watching live or even recorded, we're going to go through the regional rankings right now. 1 through 10 from the second East Regional Rankings release and discuss for about 15 minutes what it all means, what your team's hopes are or aren't at this point. So we're going to go and go one at a time. And JB, I'll let you kind of extrapolate once we get team by team on the board, your thoughts on their chances, what you're thinking about their rankings, etc. So here we go. Let us start with number 1. And Salisbury remains the number 1 team with a 501 strength of schedule, wins against Wesley, and I am forgetting the second team. Oshkosh, thank you. That's why I'm forgetting, because they're not in our region, but they do remain regionally ranked. They have William Patterson remaining at 2-7, so their strength of schedule is actually going to fall below 500, and that's an interesting problem. Regionally ranked opponents matter here, obviously, and being 2-0 is the best of the bunch in the East. So what's your thought on Salisbury?
Well, I think Salisbury has a shot at maybe not a number 1 seed, Frank, but I do feel like they're at least strong enough to be paired as number 2 with maybe someone from the South. I don't know. When you look at the overall rankings, there's 3 undefeated teams in the East. There are 2 only in the North, and there are 4 in the South, and only 2 in the West. So based on that, I could see something happen maybe with like a Muhlenberg or Wheaton getting paired off with maybe one of the West region teams as a 1, like Whitewater. But Salisbury's numbers there, I mean, if Oshkosh can hang on, although they'll probably drop out, because I think they have to play Whitewater in their season finale, so that's probably a loss that takes them off the board. So Salisbury with really only 1 regionally ranked opponent, the chances of them being a 1 seed seem to be pretty tough to me, Frank.
Okay, with you still on the screen, we will attempt to go to the next step here, and that is number 2, Wesley. 560 strength of schedule. They had lost to Salisbury, and they have won against 2 teams. I probably shouldn't name both right now because it will give away a little bit here, but they did beat Delaware Valley, which we assume is in the rankings here. And JB, they seem to be protecting Wesley by adding the extra regionally ranked opponent win, which didn't count last week, remember? Yeah, it just seems a little interesting that that's happening here, but the 560 strength of schedule will drop also with Christopher Newport. We should also mention, because we just said it, Delaware Valley is at number 3, 8-1, 528 strength of schedule, 1-1. The win is against Wesley. The loss is against Wesley. The win is against, we'll say, Stevenson, who is actually ranked in this list, and that's not a surprise to many people, so that's why I bring it up now. So there's Wesley, there's Delaware Valley. Any surprise that there's no change there?
No, not really. I mean, even though in our conversation last week with Greg Thomas, the D3Football.com bracketologist expert, and hopefully he's watching. Hey, Greg. Even though it's hard, you don't want to pair these 2 together. It seems like they're kind of just attached at the hip for overtime game. Will do that to you, and just their history, track record. I think the NJAC and the MAC are getting a little bit of the benefit of the doubt here. Honestly, I would have thought that maybe at the 9-0 mark, we could have seen Union crack into the top 3. Doesn't seem like they're going to let them do that. Maybe that'll change over the weekend, but these two teams seem to be just kind of, 2A and B basically.
With Widener having a 5-4, Delaware Valley's strength of schedule should remain right around the 528 level, not far from 530 or 525 on either side.
It's not bad, yeah.
It's good, but the problem is they have a loss, and they have a loss, and they have a loss. And so I see it that way because when you look at number 4, and that's a Union right now at 9-0, 496 strength of schedule, which should go up against 6-3 RPI, and regionally ranked opponents, they are still going to be 1-0 in the regionally ranked opponents now. This, I think, is a table set scenario for Union to at least go above Delaware Valley. I truly believe Union will go somewhere between Wesley and Delaware Valley. I don't think they're going to put them above Wesley, but I think Union is assured a home game with a win versus RPI. Would you disagree with that?
No, and I think they're probably even assured a home game, even if for some reason they trip up and lose at 9-1. I do feel like Union will get a better situation seeding and bracket wise if they can go 10-0. Because arguably you could say, if you look at their resume, it's not that much different from Salisbury's. Maybe they could catapult over these two teams, but it does seem like Wesley is getting a little more of the benefit of the doubt, maybe based on some more historical performance. Because, man, when we watched them play Kane last weekend, it's not the same kind of Wolverine team we're used to seeing, but, they still managed to get the win.
They tread lightly versus Montclair State. They tread lightly against Salisbury to a degree, but obviously Salisbury is a good team. They against Kane, against Endicott. It's been an adventure of a season for Wesley, but they are still 8-1, 7-1 in Division III. Number 5 could surprise some people, and here it comes. Brockport. We'll go big screen to show you that Brockport is a 540. 540 strength of schedule for Brockport. With a 1-0 that's against Cortland. They have Morrisville State remaining at 5-4, so their strength of schedule may drop only very slightly or may increase even by a couple thousandths of a point. It should stick around that 540 range generally. There's a leapfrog that occurred, and we'll include what that leapfrog is right now, and that's Western New England at 500 strength of schedule, which dropped off after last week's game, and a 1-0 of a regionally ranked opponent scenario that we're beginning to get a clue as to who they ranked perhaps in that number 10 spot, since we've left the mystery with Wesley and Western New England, and we ask ourselves who's the common opponent. Yeah. So if you're smart enough, you know who's there. Yep. Husson 4-5 is who's remaining, so they could drop below 500 strength of schedule. Is that enough of a reason, do you think, to jump Brockport over Western New England, who is technically undefeated in Division III, whereas Brockport is not?
I think once again it's some of the conference reputations sort of taking hold here. I think the winning the Empire 8 is definitely looked upon as a pretty significant feat, and I think if you look at the makeup of the of the rack, that these people are they tend to lean towards the Wesleys and Del Vals and the Brockports. So I'm not surprised, but to be fair to Coach Mangoni and the Golden Eagles, they have been playing great football, and they have looked really good, especially in the last few weeks, taking care of Cortland in that comeback. They had a tough time putting Alfred away, but they took care of business, and they're playing great on all sides of the ball. They're ranked back in the top 25. Things are definitely looking up for the Golden Eagles. So yeah, you could very much make the case that they deserve to be in that 5 spot ahead of mostly New England teams that typically, go one and done in the tournament.
So we have an assessment right now that a golden eagle is greater than a golden bear. Is that what's going on here?
They definitely get more altitude. I'll say that.
I'll give you that. And in this set of rankings, indeed they did. Cortland is an interesting case here. Let's take a closer look at Cortland. 8-1, 466 strength of schedule, which is low. And probably is the lowest one you'll see on this board of 10. They have the loss, and it's a regionally ranked loss against Brockport. A close loss at that. They have the Cortica game against Ithaca coming up next at 7-2. So their strength of schedule should improve remarkably, but their profile right now is nothing special. And I hate to say that to Cortland fans, but it's not.
Yeah, I honestly, Frank, think that even if they win Cortica, the chances of them getting an at-large berth are next to none. Just the profile, the lack of a regional ranked opponent win, especially now that Ithaca has dropped off the map from what we can tell. So, yeah, I think there's only one team getting picked out of the East, and fortunately for Wesley fans, they're playing against a down captain squad this weekend. Should be heavily favored. I know that there's some other teams out there at the bottom of this board that might be thinking, hey, well, if Wesley or Cortland loses, we're first in line. Ain't gonna happen, guys. Sorry.
Well, one such team,
very slim.
One such team is coming up next, and that is a new entrant to our list here. Hobart, 7-2, 600 strength of schedule, highest strength of schedule in this batch. 1-1 against regionally ranked opponents right now. That is a loss against Union and a win against Brockport. Now, Hobart has created a number of issues for this committee or this RAC because where do you order them? Do you put them between Union and Brockport somehow? Because you could justify that despite that extra loss. But they're saying essentially strength of schedule and the regionally ranked opponent scenario, maybe a double counting scenario here that basically Brockport's helping their strength of schedule remarkably, and Union, their loss, is helping their strength of schedule remarkably, and because of it, and because 0-9 Rochester is next, they don't deserve to leapfrog in that manner. It would have been a huge leapfrog to go from unranked to 5th or 6th, depending on how they handled it. If they had started ranking Hobart last week, it would have been a different story, I think. But that said, as you just said, Hobart, while it's nice to see you on the board, it's not going to mean much at the end of the day, barring complete upheaval in Pool C ranks. That means basically Wesley loses to a 2-7 CNU team. Cortland loses to Ithaca. Let's see. Whitewater beats Oshkosh, and other carnage in the WIAC occurs. Bethel, Redlands, and Wartburg lose. John Carroll loses to Baldwin Wallace. Muhlenberg loses. I mean,
Susquehanna loses. It would have to be a total national, catastrophe for anything to pan out. Honestly, when I look at the board here, Frank, Hobart's best chance of postseason is playing against that Cortland team in the New York State Bowl. Hopefully we'll be able to announce that after the weekend. That would be a great matchup, irrespective of how it goes. I mean, I could see, maybe Cortland squeaking in as a 9-1 team if they beat Ithaca, but the chances of that, looking at, the other regions and the fact there's only 5 at-large bids, is so slim. You have Redlands at 3 in the West. That's a team that's probably taken one of the Pool Cs. Susquehanna at 8-1 is looking good for one of those. John Carroll's at 8-1 is looking good for one of those. Not to mention North Central. I mean, there's just too many teams and too few spots. I pretty much would take it to the bank. Wesley, don't screw it up and lose to CNU this weekend, and you're in. But that's all the East is going to get.
Stevenson is up next behind Hobart with the win versus Wilkes, and so they displaced Wilkes. Moved to 0-2 against regionally ranked, though, because Bridgewater in the South is number 3 right now. They lost to them, and they lost to number 3 in the East, Delaware Valley. We won't belabor this. Endicott at 7-2, 5-0-8. strength of schedule. Their loss to Wesley and to Western New England. Others considered. We have 6 up here. Framingham State, maybe the next one out because with that 591, the problem is that Endicott had beaten them.
They're in the tournament no matter what.
Yep.
So they're going. They have a pool A from the MASCAC. We know this bottom half, Ithaca, Wilkes, and WestCon, they're playing for other bowl bids that don't start with NCAA. Really, the big question mark is whether or not it'll be MIT or WPI, maybe Springfield by some far-fetched, possibility, winning the New Max Pool A bid. So one of these 2 teams on the right here will be in the tournament. We'll find out Saturday. Framingham definitely is, and will probably play on the road against any one of the teams in the top 4 or 5 to the left of your screen. So the Rams are in. Just a matter of where they're going, and just draw a 500-mile circle around the Worcester area, and you can kind of figure it out.
Let's go back through these real quick here in review. Number 1, Salisbury at 8-0 with a middling strength of schedule, but a very good regionally ranked opponent's record. Wesley, number 2 at 560, which is high for a strength of schedule, but will drop off again like Salisbury's will. A 2-1 regionally ranked opponent's record, very good also. Delaware Valley, number 3, 528 is very good. A strength schedule. Widener shouldn't hurt that much. 1-1 against regionally ranked opponents. But Union's got a bigger opponent at number 4 coming up. And we'll just get those back up there. There's Union. I love when it does that. Yep.
Yeah. I will say this, Frank. I'm sticking to my stump of the we're going to see something similar to the 2012 playoff rankings where the East did not have a number 1 seed.
Oh, I think you're right now. Salisbury's not justifying it with the strength of schedule at all. And that's the problem.
Yeah, especially with Wheaton and Mount Union in the north. I mean, Wheaton being based in Illinois is interesting because they can be paired up pretty easily with a West team like a Whitewater. You could see possibly a Muhlenberg, getting a second seed in either a Mount Union or a Mary Hardin Baylor bracket. But I just don't see the overall, the strength of the East really, justifying its own pod. We'll see what happens come Sunday when we talk with the committee chair for what is this, like the 10th or 11th year in a row. And hopefully we can get some candid answers out of Jim, who's never been afraid to speak plainly. So.
12th straight season, actually. We've done it every year that we've been on the air. So Union at 9-0, number 4, 496 should go up from the RPI game at 1-0 also in the regionally ranked opponents. Brockport, 540, should remain about where it is with that loss. So they should remain below Union no matter what happens here. 1-0 with the win against Cortland. Number 6, Western New England, 500, and it shouldn't get any better, really, with Husson still on their schedule. But they picked up a regionally ranked win against Endicott in the meantime. Cortland, a very middling profile with 466 strength of schedule and no regionally ranked opponent wins, but 1 loss. Ithaca will help them on Saturday. Hobart, 7-2, very strong strength of schedule in a 1-1 regionally ranked opponent situation. That strength of schedule is about to take a nosedive against Rochester, 0-9. Stevenson, 7-2, 542, again a strong strength of schedule at this point of the season, but 0-2 against regionally ranked opponents, and Lycoming should drop that strength of schedule slightly. And number 10, Endicott, 7-2, middling 508 strength of schedule, 0-2 against regionally ranked opponents. Nichols will help the strength of schedule, but Endicott's playing for pride and bowl games right now, as you said, as is Stevenson, as is Hobart, and as is probably Cortland. I just don't see Cortland really getting much of a look, even with a win against Ithaca on this Saturday. JB, last thoughts before we close this show out?
The last thought is unfortunately not a real super positive one. It seems like this time around it's more about who you lost to versus who you beat. With maybe the exception of teams like Salisbury, Union, and Western New England who haven't lost, but they're still not necessarily getting. Well, at least in the case of Union, and maybe you can make an argument for Western New England too, that they're not really up as high as maybe they could be for the undefeated record.
I think the Liberty League once again is getting a little disrespected on one hand, even though they've got two teams in the top 10. But we'll see how this weekend pans out. I'm going to stick with my prediction that there will not be an East number 1 seed. It will be a tournament like we saw in 2012, and that Wesley will be the one team from the East region that will get the full C bid, and that's it.
Look, if Hobart beats Rochester and Ithaca beats Cortland this weekend, and Ithaca ends up ranked in the final rankings, to me, with Union strength of schedule probably surpassing Salisbury's at the end of the day, I can't really say that Union wouldn't deserve to go above Salisbury. But it would take the committee a set of real cojones to, at that point, jump Union 3 spots when they haven't really done anything to jump Union already. And that bothers me a little bit that they didn't start to move this week, because you could have justified moving Union above Delval.
Union's beaten 2 top 25 teams this season, and they're going into a big rivalry game against a team that's probably going to an ECAC bowl game probably. But yeah, I mean, the Dutchmen are kind of getting a little dissed here, Frank, as is the league, I think, to a certain extent. But hey, at the end of the day, it is what it is, and we'll see how it pans out with the new MAC getting into the fold. We'll see where the MASCAC teams get placed, and we'll go from there.
Friday around 11 a.m., lightning prediction. Sunday, we will have Jim Catanzaro right after the selections are announced on the NCAA website, probably around 6:30, 7 o'clock. We'll have to check what time that is. Monday, ECAC pairings announced on this show, and also we'll have the New York Bowl pairing as well, to the degree that we can get that in time. Then also our normal shows. Thursday, though, tomorrow, this will drop on Wednesday, obviously, live and recorded. Thursday, interviews with Coast Guard's Bill George and Grant Tragney of RPI, senior co-captain there. You'll want to stay tuned. Thanks for joining us. Have a great rest of the day and week.